The Cordilleras revert back to GCQ after reporting cases of the more contagious UK variant of COVID-19 in the region. But Cebu is still in MGCQ despite a surge in infections, which the UP Octa research team tagged as seriously concerning. Despite the worsening situation in some provinces, the tourism department welcomes the government's decision not to extend the travel ban on so-called variant countries. Another ranking official of the AFP has been sacked. This is still in relation with the questionable list published on social media, where the AFP identified UP alumni as members of the NPA. And the Gamestop drama over in Wall Street is shining light on the nature of hedge funds and the kind of risk they take on. Fast, focused, and fearless. Here's everything you need to know to jumpstart your weekend. I'm Riza Diaz. Metro Manila and 6 other areas will remain under general community quarantine for the month of February. The Cordillera Administrative Region will likewise revert to the stricter GCQ due to the recorded UK variant cases in the northern region. Batangas Province, Tacloban City, Davao del Norte, Lanao del Sur, and Iligan City are also included in the GCQ classification for February. Now, the rest of the country remains under MGCQ, the least restrictive of community quarantine classifications. Notably, Cebu is still in MGCQ, even though COVID-19 cases in the province are at an all-time high after slowing down during the holiday season. Health experts say that the possible presence of the COVID-19 UK variant may be causing the spike of infection in Cebu. But the health department says it is too early to tell if the B117 variant is truly the culprit. Greg Gregorio will tell us more.
The UP Octa research team has flagged the increasing COVID-19 infections across Cebu as a serious concern. As of January 28, Cebu City alone has recorded over 12,300 cases, some 1,054 of which are active. The province of Cebu, meanwhile, has over 8,200 infections, but only 598 are active. Based on the monitoring of the UP Octa research, there's now an average of 147 daily new cases in the province. The reproduction rate is at 1.61, above the ideal 1 threshold, indicating an uncontrolled transmission.
They were averaging just 11 cases per day before the holiday season. If it continues to increase at this rate, then they might reach the 400 cases per day threshold, which they reached last June of last year.
Aside from the holidays, UP Octa has also attributed this spike to the possible presence of the UK variant. Experts said they have seen this pattern in Mountain Province prior to the detection of the B117 variant.
We're not saying it's there, but it's just a possibility because the rate of increase is substantial.
The health department has confirmed that Cebu is among the provinces showing an increase in infections, but Undersecretary Maria Rosario Vergere emphasized that it is too early to tell that B117 is the culprit.
Mahirap tayo magsabi ng mga factors kung bakit tumataas at masasabi pa natin na baka variant yan hanggang hindi tayo sigurado because this might cause panic dun sa mga tao.
Cebu has submitted positive samples for gene sequencing in order to know if the variant exists in their area. The DOH expects the results of the gene sequencing to be released by Monday. This will also include the pending samples from the close contacts of 12 UK variant patients in Bontoc. To date, 369 individuals have been identified as close contacts. 233 of them have been tested. Only 57 are positive with COVID-19 so far, including the first 12 cases positive with the variant and the 2 negative from the variant. Meanwhile, the case of a Pinay from Cagayan who tested positive with B117 in Hong Kong is now closed. Vergere explained that none of her close contacts turned out positive for the variant. For News 5, Greg Gregorio, we are One News.
Now, despite the surge in COVID-19 cases in several provinces, the Tourism Department welcomed the easing of travel restrictions. This comes after the IATF decided not to extend the travel ban for countries with reported UK variant cases. The Tourism Department said that they are happy that the borders have reopened to balikbayans whose plans to join their families have been postponed due to the travel ban. The DOT also said that returning Filipinos can now schedule their homecoming with more local destinations opening up. Now, a shift to modified general community quarantine or MGCQ is doable in the first quarter of 2021. This is according to Trade Secretary Ramon Lopez. He says President Duterte has already directed government agencies to study the new COVID-19 variant. Lopez admits a nationwide shift MGCQ may derail efforts in the lowering of COVID-19 cases. Still, he insists the need to balance public health with economic recovery. The Trade Department is also studying which sectors and industries may be allowed to open in the coming weeks. Among those being considered are museums and other tourist spots. Several LGUs are gearing up for their mass vaccination plans. Manila, for one, has finalized its priority list of those who are set to receive the shots. JC Cosico with the story.
The city of Manila targets to vaccinate 1,000 individuals daily in each of its 18 inoculation centers as soon as COVID-19 shots arrive. Manila Mayor Isko Moreno says they could expand the number of their vaccination sites to 60, but not for now, as they are anticipating some hurdles.
Binakunahan nga natin nung una, saan mo siya hanapin sa pangalawa? Sayang naman, baka mamaya may lumabas ang guidelines na mapabaliwala yung una mong bakuna pag hindi pag hindi ka nagpabakuna sa pangalawa. Kung yung produkto na yung brand na yon ay 2 doses.
Around 600,000 residents are included in the city's master list to receive the shots. These include frontline health workers, senior citizens, indigents, and uniformed personnel. 76,000 individuals have so far pre-registered in the LGU's website for the inoculation. Officials meanwhile inspected the city's cold storage facility at the Santa Ana Hospital. 700 to 800,000 doses of any vaccine type can be stored in the area. FDA Director General Eric Domingo underscored the importance of these facilities to ensure effective vaccination. This, as he assured, vaccines issued with emergency use authorization are safe. So far, Pfizer and AstraZeneca have received EUAs from the FDA.
Hindi po ako magpapasa ng bakuna na hindi ko ituturok sa sarili kong mga magulang. Kaya po pag nakarating po dito sa inyo yon, wag po kayong mangamba. Inaral po talaga natin yon.
Domingo adds, Sinovac, Gamaleya, and Bharat Biotech's applications are still pending as they wait other reviews conducted by experts and Stage 3 clinical trial results. The FDA is still awaiting applications from Moderna, Johnson & Johnson, Clover, and Sinopharm. Manufacturers are also developing revisions if the vaccine's efficacy reduces amid the detection of new virus variants.
We're confident that the companies will be able to respond to the need. Pag nakitang bumababa na talaga yung efficacy, then i-revise yan para maka-respond siya doon sa prevailing virus at that time.
However, the country's FDA is not yet keen on granting an EUA for self-swab test kits. The FDA also reminded the public not to use non-registered FDA products to ensure safety. For News 5, JC Cosico, we are One News.
And we'll be back with more stories after the break. Keep it here on One News. You're still watching One News Now. I'm Riza Diaz. Here are the biggest stories from the dailies. Business World reports that President Duterte has signed a law strengthening the Anti-Money Laundering Act. This will give authorities more power to go after suspected cases of money laundering, as the Anti-Money Laundering Council can now apply before a court for a search and seizure warrant as well as a subpoena. The council is also given the additional power to preserve, manage, or dispose assets pursuant to a freeze order, preservation order, or a judgment of forfeiture. The Philippine Star reports that the House Committee decision rejecting ABS-CBN's franchise bid is final. This statement comes from the House Legislative Franchises Committee Chair Franz Alvarez. He says no one appealed the decision, so it has now become final and executory. Alvarez adds that any further decisions will be, quote, moot and academic, since the bill only seeks to grant the network a franchise until October 31st of last year. This statement was made after Representative Michael Defensor attempted to bring up a measure seeking to grant the network a provisional franchise upon a plenary vote. Now, a number of lawmakers have also refiled bills seeking the franchise renewal of ABS-CBN for another 25 years. But President Duterte says any company seeking a franchise, quote, won't see the light of day unless they pay the right amount of taxes. Another AFP official has been sacked in relation to the controversial list of alleged communist rebels. Major General Benedict Arevalo was removed as Deputy Chief of Staff of the Civil Military Operations while investigating the fake list issued by his unit regarding alleged UP alumni's, quote, caught or killed as New People's Army. Arevalo was sacked after Armed Forces Deputy Chief for Intelligence Major General Alex Luna was terminated on January 28. Now, for those wondering what's going on with Gamestop and U.S. hedge funds this week, well, Bloomberg Quick Take will break it down for us. Let's watch this.
It was only a matter of time before the anger really turned to the hedge fund industry. Remember, after 2008, the banks stopped prop trading, right? They stopped putting a lot of their own money at risk. So a lot of the risk went into the hedge fund industry. And people think of hedge funds just as buying stocks and bonds. They do that, but they also short some of those stocks and bonds, and they also dabble in a lot of other much more complicated markets around the world. At the end of the day, a lot of this is done with leverage, which is where the real the risk is. And, there was an anger last year when early moves by the Fed started to be seen as bailing out the hedge fund industry before it bailed out Main Street, because some of these funds were levered like 100 to 1. They were very, very levered.
When you talk about hedge funds and you talk to your sources at these hedge funds and on Wall Street, give us an idea of whose money is invested with these hedge funds.
It's a great question because often it's people you don't want to get hurt. It's pension funds, for example. Gabe Plotkin, one of the famous hedge fund managers that got burned this week in many of these GameStop AMC trades. Endowments, foundations, charitable organizations. So ultimately, they're managing money for large institutions that need them to be managing that risk. But if they lose a lot of money, it's a problem for them. There's also a lot of fees involved, which is a lot of where this anger also comes from.
Okay, so we saw something happen earlier this morning that was, I think, really surprising for a lot of people who follow this. Citron Research was saying that it is not going to be publishing short interest research like it's been doing for the past 20 years, essentially changing its own strategy. That's a big change for Citron, but when it comes to hedge funds, do you think that hedge funds are going to change the way that they at least talk about shorting? Are they going to maybe not talk about it as much? Because talking about what you're shorting is a big part of the strategy because you want to get other people on board.
This week, by the way, Tim, it's incredible because they already started to change the way they talk about it. In the forums where they normally would bring up these ideas, they stopped doing it, right? And right now we're in a market that's ever higher, right? And it's really hard to short companies. But shorting does play a place in the market so long as people are not taking on too much risk, right? Some of these folks have uncovered fraud. Some of these folks have really recovered some uncovered some really serious corporate governance issues. So shorting in itself is not necessarily a bad thing, Tim. The thing that people are more concerned, really what has happened, it's become a symbol, right, of the excesses of the hedge fund industry and the risks that they're taking on. And so the entire industry right now is painted with a broad brush. I think it will cause some people to start thinking differently about the way they communicate the way they are short.
And those are the top stories of the hour. Join us later at 9 in the morning as we continue to monitor the day's biggest stories. You can also catch One News on Signal Play app. Register for a free account now at www.signalplay.com and stream One News live anytime, anywhere. I'm Riza Diaz. We are One News.